Can you recognize emotional abuse? If not, this next segment is for you. We've got an expert to help us dig into it. Samantha DiLecce is a New York State licensed marriage and family therapist. And Samantha, it's so nice that you're joining our show today. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in New York State, and I've been practicing for over 10 years, mostly with families, couples, but individuals as well, and people that just struggle with relational issues. Yeah.
And today we really want to talk about emotionally abusive relationships. Can you tell us why people stay in those emotionally abusive relationships?
So I hear so much in my practice, people don't want to start over. They don't want to be single. If you add emotional abuse to the equation, then it becomes a lot more complicated, right? Because there's a lot of, and we'll get into this more, but a lot of threat, a lot of manipulation that goes into leaving a relationship like that. So sometimes the abuser will say, well, if you leave, who's going to want you? Or for instance, if you leave, I'll tell your whole family who you really are. If you leave, I'll expose to your friends all of your terrible qualities. So there's a lot of threat involved, even though it's not physical harm. There's still a lot of threat. Yes.
Which is really sad and unfortunate. So when you have situations like this, do you give them advice to leave, or do you point out the reasons why they should leave so it becomes their decision?
So the first step is really to put a name to all of this, to call it what it is, right? This is an example of emotional abuse. And when the person starts to be able to say that out loud and really own that, yes, I think they're much more likely to make a decision to leave.
And in your opinion, do you feel that emotional abuse is actually harder than physical abuse or more serious?
I think it's equally as serious as physical abuse, but it's definitely more subtle, right? People can miss it. And that's what makes it so serious, is that people can live in this space with their partner decades, I've seen, right? Because with physical abuse, it's a little easier to say, oh, well, this big thing is going on. But with emotional abuse, it can come off as, oh, my partner's really mean to me, or, I don't like to bring them around my friends, and that just kind of becomes the normal narrative for the two of them.
So a lot of people, in your opinion, are in these emotionally abusive relationships, and they don't probably realize that they're in them.
Correct.
Unless they go to a therapist who's actually pointing that out, or they have a good support system, like their friends, family, that really knows what's going on.
Absolutely. And I think that people can fall into these relationships, unfortunately, not all the time, but because they've experienced some sort of emotional abuse in other parts of their life, whether it was when they were a child, whether it was from a previous relationship, a parent, siblings. I see that too sometimes. So again, at a young age, it can be programmed that this is normal.
What are some of the subtle signs of emotional abuse that people don't realize and they overlook?
Sure. So gaslighting is a huge one, and it's a word that has come up a lot more recently, which I'm thankful for, because it's bringing a lot of awareness to people in their relationships. But there's also scapegoating and general manipulation, control. Gaslighting, I mean, we could do a whole other conversation.
Oh, yeah. Well, Vita and I we're very familiar with gaslighting.
Give just a brief for people that it's such a gotcha term. Could you just give a brief, 2-second answer? What is gaslighting? Like kindergarten definition.
Yes. So it's basically when the abuser causes their partner to question their own reality. And there's a lot of key phrases associated with that, such as, oh, that didn't happen that way. You remembered that wrong. I was not out until 3 a.m. Right? Yeah.
I mean, somebody showed up to my front door, a prostitute showed up on a Ring camera at my front door, and I was imagining it.
That's right.
And I watched it. It was like, oh no, I didn't really order that person. It was a joke. And I'm like, it wasn't a joke. She's at our front door. It's 5 a.m. Right.
That's exactly right. Perfect.
So that's gaslighting.
That is gaslighting at its extreme. Yes. Mm-hmm. But there's other subtle signs of emotional abuse. I will say, I think this is a really important point that I've been seeing a lot in couples, especially younger couples, is the influence of technology. For instance, women especially will come to me and say, oh yeah, I had to sit down with my boyfriend the other day. We had to go through my phone records. You had to go through your phone records. Yeah. And then there's social media, of course. So my boyfriend or girlfriend forced me to block so-and-so. I can only use Instagram in their presence. I had to delete my this, my that. So there's a lot of that happening all the time. And again, people start to think it's normal.
I mean, I've made people block people before. I'll admit it. Maybe I'm an emotional abuser. Who knew? I'm ready to come see you.
But what do you think about sharing location? If you're starting in a new relationship and the other person's asking to share your location, what do you think about that?
I would say 9 times out of 10, there's always exceptions to all of these rules, but I would say 9 times out of 10, I would steer clear of that, especially in the beginning of a relationship. Now, the one exception I would make is if it's a long distance relationship and there's like safety concerns. Let's say a partner lives in a big city and the other partner lives far away in a suburb. Share your location so I can make sure you got home okay. Share your location so I know the Uber dropped you off. That's a little different. But if it's just out of curiosity and to keep tabs on somebody, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do you think that the emotional abuse could impact like a person's mental and physical health over time?
So I would say the number one red flag with emotional well-being being impacted is isolation, right? Because a lot of the time an abuser will want that person all to themselves, right? Yes. Because if that person goes out into the world and sees that, life is different and life can be happier, then that's threatening to the abuser. They can't allow that person to have other interests, close friendships. Sometimes they'll even cut them off from their family members, their parents, their best friends. They have to keep them, the abuser has to keep them really, really close. So I would say isolation is number one. Number two, anxiety and depression, right? Because imagine waking up every day and not knowing if you're going to get the charming version of your partner, because they can be very charming, right? They have to be.
Very.
The charming version or the manipulative, terrible version. So that creates inconsistency and a lack of stability. Part of emotional abuse too could be that the abuser criticizes the person physically, right? You need to gain weight. You need to lose weight. You need to work out more. Sometimes people become obsessed with the gym.
He started that with me from the first month and told me my body was soft and I needed to go to the gym. But I was 26. I didn't know what emotional abuse was or narcissism. I just thought, oh, okay, my body is soft. I need to go to the gym. But that's when it started. And it continued for 27 years. Yeah. What are some good, effective steps that people can take to after they're in the emotional abusive relationship to rebuild their self-esteem?
Obviously, I'm going to say therapy, but there's in addition to that, I think finding the right therapist. What is truly right for you? A space where you feel safe to really be your authentic self. That's the type of therapist that someone would need. I would also say, think of the version of yourself prior to being in the abusive relationship, right? What did that person like? What did they enjoy? What were their hobbies? What gave them peace? That's where the healing is going to take place.
It's really hard to go back and find yourself again after being in, an abusive relationship like that. And it takes time. For me, it took until the summer. This summer, I really found myself. I just left, went to Europe, spent a lot of time alone. It's a process.
But it does take time. It also depends on how long the relationship was, right? If we're talking 5, 10, 15 years of emotional abuse, you have to give yourself grace because that's going to take a long time to sort of rewire and undo some of that damage. I would also say interpersonal relationships after the abusive relationship is so important. So making sure that you see red flags in new relationships, right? To prevent that.
Run for the hills.
After mine, I just attracted every narcissist on the planet. So I'm like, what's going on? Now I'm no longer attracting those people. I just went from like one to the next. And now I really understand like the difference. And like the people I'm attracting now are far from.
But that's the point, right? Because you can put a name to it and you know what the red flags are. You know what to look out for.
This was so great. Thank you so much. And Samantha, she's an expert in my new book that's coming out in 2026, which I'm super excited about. And this was great. Thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you and all this great information.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy that you're talking about this topic because it's really, really relevant right now.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.